Hi, I'm Larry Brill.
And I'm Scott Semegran. This is Larry. He's an award-winning author. His latest book is Deja Vu All Over Again.
Scott is an award winner with a list of 5-star reviews as long as your arm. His latest novel is a great piece of literary fiction. It's called The Benevolent Lords of Sometimes Island. Well, last year, Scott and I put together the Austin Liti Limits website, a way to introduce people to some really great authors and showcase them through one-on-one interviews and readings.
We've been working with our good friends at Book People to create these interviews, but COVID-19 has driven everyone to their virtual bunkers. Now we've decided to continue Austin Liti Limits online, socially distanced, but every bit as entertaining. In this episode of Austin Liti Limits, I sat down for an interview with author Jacqui Castle.
Jacqui is a professional freelance writer living in the Blue Ridge Mountains near Asheville, North Carolina. She grew up in the Maryland town of Smithsburg with a population of 3,000. Jacqui then traveled clear across the country to Southern Oregon University to go to college in a town that was only slightly larger. She professes to be a decent tap dancer once upon a time, and despite years of gymnastic training, still can't do a cartwheel. The Seclusion is her first novel. It's won several awards, including Forward Indie's Book of the Year Award for Science Fiction and garnering Jacqui the 2020 Indie Author of the Year Award from the Indie Author Project.
Please welcome Jacqui Castle.
Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Sure. How's it going?
Oh, it's going as well as it could be at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got my tea, and the kids are happy in the other room, so can't complain.
That's right. I have my 17-year-old. She's in school right now in her room. I have the dog locked up. The cats are free range right now.
That's right. That's the best we can hope for.
I know. So let's get into it. So your novel, The Seclusion, which is an excellent novel. It's a dystopian science fiction novel. The main character in The Seclusion, Patch, feels that the government in this future version of America has her best interest at heart. But do you feel she confuses complacency with safety?
For sure. I think especially in the beginning of the novel, and the novel is a lot about her journey. But I think like a lot of us right now, she has trouble questioning why she believes what she does. She's heard the same things her entire life, mostly revolving around the extreme measures that the government takes and that those are for her safety. And so they must be true, right? I think that questioning our long-held beliefs is uncomfortable, and it's much easier to accept that your way is the right way. Otherwise, you're kind of admitting that you've been duped, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't easy. So we get to watch Pat struggle with that a little bit, while also she is a scientist. So at her core, she knows the value of research and getting to the root of a problem. So she has a little bit of trouble, making those aspects of her personality fit together. And I wanted the reader to maybe not fall in love with her right away, or maybe even be frustrated with her. The way you would with someone in a horror movie who doesn't turn the light on when they're walking down the basement steps.
Yeah, I definitely got that at first. Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Right. But then also grow with her as she starts to dismantle her thought processes and what's going on.
So when this story was unraveling to you, what is it you think why do people struggle when they realize something is wrong and then like putting something into action to do something about it? Did you struggle with that with Patch at first, or did you have a good idea of how you wanted her to propel forward?
In the first few drafts, she was not as complacent. She was definitely, I don't know, similar to some other dystopian characters where, really knew that something wasn't right, but I wanted her journey to be a little harder. I wanted the reader to kind of have their eyes open along with her. And so as we went further along, we made sure she was a little more brainwashed in the beginning of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
So why is it that the cross-country trip that the characters take reveals so much about them and then ultimately about ourselves? What do you think it is about cross-country trips that reveal things that, weren't there for someone?
That's a really good question. I think characters in a book, kind of like real people, start to thrive when you take them out of their everyday monotony and creature comforts and put them in a situation that they haven't navigated before. Add a little bit of adrenaline and some last minute problem solving, and then someone kind of starts to show you what they're capable of and their true colors. I think with cross-country trips, both fictional and in real life, I think if you're traveling with a companion or you're watching a character, you get to witness someone experiencing these places, new foods, new environments, and how they react can tell you a lot about them. So whether they react with excitement and wonder or fear and confusion, you know, that starts to reveal aspects of their personality that you might not see if you just saw them at work every day.
Have you driven across the United States before?
I have multiple times, yes. I'm from DC originally, and then I lived in Oregon for a while, and then I now live in Asheville, North Carolina. So both times that we moved across country, we made a big trip of it, and made sure to see a little bit of America's landscape.
Yes, my wife and I drove from Austin, Texas to Bozeman, Montana once with 4 kids and a dog, all in a van. And we survived. Obviously, I'm here. But
yeah, that's a feat, though.
It was an epic journey. It was very difficult.
Yeah, our first trip, we were young and in our early 20s and had all the time in the world. And then the second one, we had 2 dogs, 2 cats, and a 3-year-old. And so we did a lot of driving at night and then seeing the sights and stopping, during the day.
So let's get back to the book. So is discussing or dissecting politics important to you in your writing, like particularly in the fiction? I know on Twitter you're very vocal about the political views you have, but in your writing, do you think it's important to discuss or dissect politics?
Yeah, I think that it is a little bit of fuel for my writing. And so I do use that as inspiration sometimes, what is going on in the real world. I like to take things that are happening and try to push them to the extreme. Right now, that's kind of challenging when fact is stranger than fiction a lot of the times. But I do,
we're like living in dystopian time right now, right?
We are. They're really giving us a run for our money. I do like to play around and just, I'm always been fascinated with how misinformation spreads and the effects of power on a person, and then, how humans react during a crisis. And so I do put some of those themes into my books. The importance of the free press has been something that's very important to me. And so I do have those themes in my books as well. What would the world look like if that was gone? And
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I know in my novel, To Squeeze a Prairie Dog, it definitely has, it has my political views in it, but it's very subtle rather than being overt. I really wanted the characters to kind of lead and display how I felt about things.
Yeah.
And I think that is important. I think all writing has political subtext to it.
Yeah, and I think dystopian fiction often, has those themes where we deal with a corrupt government or we deal with things going to the extreme.
Right.
And even just sci-fi in general, not necessarily dystopian, can often kind of hold a mirror up to things that are going on in our society and allow people to explore some of their fears in a safe way. And if nothing else, it's cathartic for me to write. So keep doing it.
So I find creative inspiration in reading books, of course, but also watching movies, listening to music. I love taking long walks and kind of mulling over story ideas. Where do you find your creative inspiration?
A lot of the same. So I do like to watch movies and television shows that have similar themes, or even just to watch something for the story itself, obviously. But then as a writer, I'm always curious about the pacing and the story beats and character traits. And then sometimes that will spark an idea. I also, like I said before, tend to get ideas when I'm catching up on the news. So we'll often file things away for later. With sci-fi, I like to sometimes just cruise through tech journals or, and just ask myself, what would happen if this product or this way of doing something became something that everyone in our society was using? Where would that lead us? And so I do like to do things like that. When I sit down to write, I try to read first. I'm a very distracted person. And so that seems to provide
I
a
know
bridge
you're
for
always
me.
on Twitter. I always see
I
you on there. So I'm
know,
like,
way
you're
too
right.
much. You know, it's funny. I'm actually not on there that much when you add it up. I check it like, 2 minutes at a time once in a while. So it can give that appearance.
Right. So
But yeah,
what's a book or a movie or a TV show or an album that you've listened in the last month? I'm going to really tighten it. That really blew your mind a little bit.
I just read The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. And I think within the first chapter, I was like, okay, I have a new favorite author, or, top tier author. I just really loved it. It reminded me a lot of American Gods. I don't know if you're a Neil Gaiman fan, but it's a great story. It's kind of about the personification of the boroughs of New York City. And it was just a lot of fun. So it's kind of fantasy sci-fi overlap, and highly recommend it.
Awesome. Yeah, the last book I read, I just finished, was there's an artist for Marvel Comics from the 60s and 70s named Jack Kirby. It was a kind of a history of him. He created the Fantastic Four and the Hulk, and that was really fascinating. I love comic books, and that kind of stuff gets into my work. And then just this past week, I listened to the new Flaming Lips album. Man, it was so good. And I listen to music when I write, so when stuff comes up that I really like that, I'll be using it for future writing sessions.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep. Let's see. Where do you find support for your writing? Do you have writers groups you work with? Do you have friends that you talk to about it, or is your family, do they help you with your writing? Where do you find support?
My family and friends are incredibly supportive. My husband's always happy to read a draft or read a scene and tell me how it feels. I do have a wonderful group of writing friends as well. We tend to get together once a month and go to dinner, pre-pandemic, of course. And we don't always do, critiques or help each other with writing, but sometimes it's nice to just be surrounded by people that get it and that are living and navigating the world of writing and publishing. I would like to be more involved in critique groups. I do have some online groups that I'm a part of, and we're happy to exchange scenes and just, give each other feedback, and that is really invaluable.
Right. Now, I know the pandemic has affected a lot of writers. I've communicated with some, and they were in a pit of despair still, and then some others, have already written a novel in the time that since the pandemic started. How has it affected your writing, the current work in progress you have?
Yeah. Well, the Seclusion to the sequel, fortunately, had already been passed off to an editor before the pandemic really hit. And so most of my work on that has been just kind of working on notes and passing that back and forth, which I was really grateful for, because I think the first several weeks, focus was almost impossible for me. But now I've started working on a separate story, and though it doesn't deal with a pandemic, it deals with a lot of emotions and reactions to a pending emergency. So I have been able to kind of pull from how I've been feeling, and also, what we're witnessing around us. As far as my practice has changed, I've just tried to be more forgiving with myself. I have 2 young kids who are learning virtually and squeezing any of my work between the cracks.
Yes.
I have, paid clients that kind of take priority. I do content writing as well. And so where I used to try to write, 1,000 to 1,500 words a day when drafting, I'm kind of just aiming for 250 to 500 and calling it a day. In a pandemic, we kind of have to add that to everything we do.
Right.
I wrote 500 words in a pandemic. It has to be okay.
I know. Crazy. So you were the 2020 Indie Author of the Year. You won through the Indie Author Project. We were both involved with that. I was the winner for the state of Texas. You were the winner for North Carolina, and then you were selected as the national winner. Does winning a book award like this, or the one for Forward Indies, does that provide an affirmation for you about your work, or how do you feel about book awards in general?
Yeah, I think it can provide a little affirmation and almost just a boost, to help you get on through the next thing, and to know that what you're doing has value and meaning. I think when you're a writer, it can often feel like you're doing it alone, especially with your first book. You work on it for years sometimes with no idea if anyone's ever going to read it. Sometimes you're overtaken by intense imposter syndrome, or multiple times a week, who knows? Writers are finicky. Yeah, writers are finicky. And so I think winning an award, and specifically being named the Author of the Year, was really just such an honor. To me, it was just a group of people saying, we got you, we're in your corner, and we're going to help your story reach more people because we think it's worthy. And so that is, I don't think you can understate something like that when you're navigating this world.
I know we both flew out to Nashville for the award ceremony. What was it? The ALA conference was going on, and we got to meet a lot of the other winners, and it was really nice getting to talk to the other writers and meeting them in person.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the time of the show. It's our lightning round. It's a concept that we stole from Inside the Actors Studio, but they stole it from Bernard Pivot and Marcel Proust. A lot of people have stolen this particular format, so it's not anything new, but this is our format for Austin Liti Limits. So you ready for the lightning round?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, first question. What is your favorite word?
Quintessential.
Ooh, that's a mouthful. What is your least favorite word?
Moist.
Someone else said that word. That is a gross sounding word.
I'm sure it's common.
What turned you on?
Sense of humor.
Nice. What turned you off?
Arrogance.
I feel the same. What is your idea of happiness?
Family, friends, time to explore my interests.
More than writing? All right. Who is your favorite author?
Right now, Frederick Bachman and N.K. Jemisin.
Excellent. If you could be a character from any well-known novel throughout history, who would you be?
Crowley from Good Omens.
Nice. What profession other than your own would you want to attempt?
Pilot. I actually have 5 hours towards my license.
Cool.
Over the last 20 years.
Awesome. What profession would you least want to do?
Accountant.
Right. Okay, final one. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the check-in desk?
Welcome. Inside, you'll find unlimited books, tea, and chocolate.
Excellent. All right, Jacqui Castle, 2020 Indie Author of the Year, book The Seclusion, fantastic book. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.